Jeremiah Tower's peers consider him to be one of history's most influential chefs. In the 1970s, he pioneered modern American cuisine at the internationally acclaimed Chez Panisse. He then went on to found his own restaurant, Stars, which propelled him into the public eye as the world's first celebrity chef. A new documentary, Jeremiah Tower, The Last Magnificent, examines Tower's life and legacy. Here's a look at the trailer.
He was just sexy.
They were like, wow.
Jeremiah defined what a modern American restaurant could be.
Jeremiah Tower.
Joining me are the executive producer of the film, Anthony Bourdain, and Jeremiah Tower himself. Welcome. It's great to have you at this table. And have you back, sir.
Thanks.
Why did you want to make this film?
Well, I've been aware of Jeremiah, of course, by reputation. I've been cooking food that was either a direct ripoff of his or heavily influenced by him for years without knowing it. But it was his book, California Dish, his memoir, that left me angry. You know, in the book, there's a clear case made for his true importance to what we call the American food revolution. And the fact that he appeared to have been wittingly written out of history made me, pressed my justice button, made me angry, and really was the impetus for this film. As the project progressed, you know, I started to take a bigger view. I mean, it's also a great a character story, and but initially I felt that Jeremiah, this great chef and innovator and artist who changed the entire industry, the way we eat in America now, that he hadn't been adequately credited for his accomplishments just made me angry.
Is that because he did not get all the credit that he deserved for Chez Panisse?
Yes, that is true. But he wasn't around. Suddenly he wasn't around anymore. And, you know, to what is it, to the history is written by the victors. It was easy for lazy journalists to have access to the people who were still around, and it was not so easy to
He's
have
on the
access.
beach in Mexico. Right.
Yeah. So he was knowingly written out.
Yeah, so knowingly written out.
Yeah. People knew better. They were there.
So what happened? So Chez Panisse, then Stars, then Mexico.
Well, actually, then I came to New York and did a couple of cookbooks and some PBS shows, and then 9/11, I decided I probably should live. You know, there'd already been the earthquake and then terrorists, and so I thought I'd better, you know, go someplace where there were no hurricanes or earthquakes or terrorists. So I went to Mexico to the beach.
And stayed for?
Oh, a long time. So on and off, on and off. But, you know, part of it was I thought to myself, you know, at one point, Time magazine said I'd had more publicity than Meryl Streep. I mean, complete exaggeration. But when you look at it like that, I thought, what's the next act? You know, I didn't want to stick around. Yeah. You know, it wasn't, you know, I want to be alone. I want to be left alone, as Greta Garbo truly said, left alone.
So you wanted to be left alone. You'd had enough of that for a moment.
For the moment, yeah. I'd said hello to 350 people a day for 25, 30 years, and that was, you know, my mouth was stuck in a frozen smile.
But in your own way, in your own words, what did you do? What did you create? Beyond the cuisine was much more.
Yes. It was the lifestyle that you can have at a restaurant. I mean, I saw once when I walked into a brasserie in Paris, there were two very thin, beautiful model-type women with an enormous shellfish platter in front of them, you know, 4 stories high. And they were eating, when I walked by, they were eating crab out of the claws with their red enamel long fingernails, sort of sucking on their fingernails in the crab. And I thought, I want a restaurant just like that, you know. Yeah. And when I left the restaurant, they were still there, still digging into all of that. And I thought, that's sexy and beautiful and powerful. And you know, and so I couldn't wait to open a restaurant that was just like that.
That mix of the divine and the disgraceful all in one space was also a new thing.
Yes.
An open kitchen. Yeah. A restaurant where one walked in wanting to see the chef. Before that, the last person you wanted to see, much less hear an opinion from, was the chef. At Stars, people insisted on it.
Yeah. It was also an attitude about life, too, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it was like, that's why my
hero
celebration. Yes. Lucius Beebe, you know,
tell us who
truly the last magnificent. I mean, the man who invented Cafe Society. I'm not sure what Cafe Society is, but I read about it a lot. Yeah. But he was the last man to have a private railroad car, And as Jim Villas says in the documentary, that he was, expelled from Harvard and Yale for showing up drunk to the first class of the morning in a top hat and tails. He was just a man who said, actually my favorite thing from Lucius Beevy is when he said, everything's sort of all right with the world when you've been out on the town and you can have a hot bird and a cold bottle. That just kind of sums it up for me.
A hot bird and a cold
bottle.
Yeah.
Perfectly roast chicken and chassagne Montrachet.
You say we won't see the likes of this guy again because something has changed?
Well, to a great extent, Jeremiah changed it. To be the first celebrity chef, you can't be the first celebrity chef again.
Yeah.
It's been done. The restaurant business in many ways has become, almost every restaurant you walk into is in many ways a reflection, to one extent or another, of work that was pioneered by Jeremiah. The menus he wrote were incredibly influential, attributing ingredients proudly to American sources by name, American wines, American products. This was, again, new. So to have that kind of tectonic effect on a culture, how many Jimi Hendrixes or Chuck Berrys can you have?
Well, that touches my heart, Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, exactly. It does. Anybody's heart. But you were born to class and travel.
Right.
You understood a good life.
I was. What James Beard said, he was vaccinated with a passport.
Yes.
I think I was too. But also, because of my parents traveling, they always took me along, which was wonderful.
So you got to know all the great places.
Absolutely. Yeah. From a very early age, starting at 4 or 5 years old in Sydney.
Yeah. What's the relationship with Alice Waters today?
Oh, fine. I went to the 40th anniversary dinner, and the two of us sat in the middle of the dining room at a little table, which she, of course, carefully staged, but, it was fun. What a great evening. So Lydia Tenali, the director, asked her to come, a couple of times to be in the film, and they set up a time to film it, and then she changed her mind at the last minute. So,
do you know why?
No, I don't.
I think it's I believe it's an emotional issue. I think she feels very strongly both about Jeremiah and I look, I'm not going to speak for her, but I know that it was an emotional conversation trying to get her to appear in the film, which we wanted very badly to happen. It is not an anti-Alice Waters film.
Absolutely, and I didn't want to suggest it was Stripe, but she got lots of the credit that you say he partially deserved.
True.
Yeah, but the idea of coming back to New York,
right?
You surprised people.
Oh, God.
Is that an overstatement?
It was incredibly inconvenient. We'd finished the film.
Yes.
That's what I thought you'd finished the film.
And we opened the New York Times, and there's Jeremiah doing this outrageous, high-profile thing that changes the entire trajectory of the story. And Lydia Tenali, the director of the film,
and your partner
calls me. Yes, calls me up and says, "Oh my God, what do we do? We're going to have to shoot for another year." And my immediate comment was, "No, you won't. This will be over in a month."
Is that what she said?
That's what I said.
Oh, you said it.
Yeah, she thought she'd have to shoot for another month. That this could possibly work.
Right.
And I knew right away.
Why did you know right away?
I've had friends who've worked at Tavern. I'm well familiar with the plays. I'm a cynical guy who's been in the business, who was in the business a long time. This was a
recipe for disaster.
A recipe for disaster. And on top of, even if everything had gone right, Jeremiah, from what I knew about him even then, is all about fabulousness and glamour. And whatever you say about Tavern on the Green,
it's not that.
It's never going to be that. It's where you go. If you want to bring your grandmother out for her birthday, you go there so that none of your friends will see you.
Well, you're a smart guy. How come you didn't see this?
I have a fatal attraction for the slim chance, and this was almost
That's
fatal.
a great quote, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Fatal attraction for the slim chance.
Yeah.
It
was an adventure, and it was a dangerous adventure, and of course I'm usually very often stupid enough to step up and take a swing at it.
So you now go around the world making speeches and talking about life and class and what turns you on.
Right.
Do you still, if somebody came around and said, do I have an idea? Do I have a place? Do I have the perfect situation? Are you all ears?
Yes. Especially if it's on the Amalfi Coast with Mario Batali. And I'm sorry to bring that up again, but it was so funny a year ago because, people kept asking me, what next, what next, what next? And finally I ran out of answers. So I said, well, the Amalfi Coast with Mario Batali. And, of course, Mario being somebody called him immediately. Yeah. And he said, well, yes, of course.
We can do that.
Completely fictitious is the word I'm looking for, yeah.
No, but you would do that. You would go to the Amalfi Coast and open a restaurant that would uniquely yours, and you would basically say, I've been born to do this, one last great place.
Well, I think, everybody should look for a last act.
Yes.
And, I'm 75 in a few days.
Yeah.
So I probably have only one last, well, of course, by definition, it's the last act.
Yes.
But, there was a little bar on the beach in Phuket. And I was sitting there last year and I said, don't you, it was a little bar this big, good sound system, great music, and some booze. That was it, in the sand. I said, don't you have an umbrella? And some old guy comes out of the jungle, he'd cut down a banana tree and he sticks it in the sand next to me and said, there's your umbrella. And I thought, that was my second moment. I said, I've got to have a restaurant like this. So a beach bar, I might do.
You might do it.
Yeah. With perfect ingredients, simply done, and good music and a banana tree, for sure.
What's the contraction between the two of you?
I think it initially admiration.
Yeah.
But as I got to know Jeremiah's story, we're talking about the story of so many important celebrity chefs is the story of the neglected or abused child. And however Jeremiah chooses to describe his childhood, moving from ocean liner to suite at the Plaza Athénée, he was alone.
Yeah.
Left completely alone to his only friends, waiters, room service waiters, and cooks and hotel staff, which I theorize is perhaps possible source of his attraction, his fetishization of the beautiful appointments and flatware and the things that make that life attractive. So he's a fascinating character. It is an incredible story, a fascinating character, and a wronged artist. These are all things that appeal very strongly to me, and then also
artist is the word for you in this case.
In this case, yes, and and a charming and endlessly interesting person to be around.
I mean, can you imagine worse people to bring up a child than hotel and restaurant staff? You don't have to answer that, but I admire Tony because the intelligence is massive. His courage is massive. And he can say things extemporaneously. I mean, he can just say things like that, which, wow me completely. When a blogger came up to us as we were stepping out of a studio a few months ago, and he said, Tony, what's the best eating in the world? Where should I go? And Tony just looked at him and said, go to Tokyo and drop acid, and we got in the car. And I just thought, I got to learn how to do that. No, I admire him tremendously.
Yeah.
You're a great man.
But it's also integrity. I mean, there is a sense about Tony.
Absolutely.
Since he's not
really embarrassed now.
Yeah, well,
I mean, no, but so when I saw the ad for the new show in Puerto Rico, I thought, God, that man is unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
How could he get to Puerto Rico after the hurricane, and do a show and get it edited and on the air?
Well, I went before the hurricane.
Right.
That's the answer.
That's the truth.
Yeah. It's really incredible what you mentioned this before, and Jose Andres has done down there. A place that was devastated, is devastated, still without power in most of the country.
He went straight there. He didn't have any support staff. He had no plan. He had no organization in place or logistical framework. He just went down and figured, I will put hands on whatever food is there in whatever condition it is, and I will turn it into hot cooked meals and distribute it as widely as I can. And this grew quickly as he started to work with the World Central Kitchen, grew quickly to the point that he served first 1 million, then 2 million. He's fed more hot meals than FEMA in this entirely private enterprise. It's an extraordinary thing, and it's all comes from the heart.
Okay, I want to show a couple of things. Let's go to number 3, the third clip, if we may. Take a look at this. This is you talking with others about the return to the profession. Here it is.
And then he kind of disappeared without a trace. There's clearly unfinished business.
That quote from Proust, "Work while you still have the light." I wanted to see if my light was still on.
Work while you still have the light.
Proust lying in bed writing.
Yeah. And you wanted to see if you still
If my light was still on.
Yeah. But you still believe it's on, don't you?
Oh, yes, but you have to test yourself occasionally.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the fun in lying in bed unless you're writing the world's greatest novel?
Isn't this a bit within you because with all the things we said about you, why this was interesting to you? Isn't there something within you wants to see of what you'd be involved in, one masterful effort for a great final chapter?
I don't need that. I honestly don't. I don't need it. I'm not hungry for that.
Yeah, well, but see, it's not for you; it's for him.
Well, he's right.
Would I like to see Jeremiah
do that? Yeah, or not? Because you
I'd
love him in a different way.
I'd like Jeremiah to be happy.
Yeah.
But I think it's Orson Welles syndrome in a lot of ways. When you've made Citizen Kane, you don't have to apologize for anything or achieve anything else for the rest of your life.
Here would be my argument.
Yeah.
It's what he knows, he does, he is. So it's not trying to top yourself, but it is him wanting to paint with new colors, wanting to,
I like, as a compassionate human being who knows the pain of the restaurant business, the price to be paid for being the best, much less the best again, is too high for anyone to bear, especially in the restaurant business. I would hope for the beach bar or the place on the, a modest osteria on the Amalfi Coast.
Can I make a reservation for the Amalfi Coast?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that would be quite the accomplishment and, a good life.
And a good place to be.
Oh, yeah.
Where are you now in terms of adventure for this season?
I'm about a quarter of the way through shooting another couple of seasons, all nearly consecutively. So I'm really in between many travels. I'm in between Nagorno-Karabakh and Uruguay at the moment, and continuing to produce films, working on a book. I'm a person who needs to stay busy.
Memoir or something else?
Essays.
About life, about...
Yeah.
Of all the places you have been, this is like a locker room question. Of all the places you have been, if suddenly you needed to go away for a year, where would you go?
That's a good one.
Maybe Spain, maybe San Sebastian in Spain. It's a grown-up city, fantastic food, centrally located to Paris and Rome, which is nice.
Right.
That would not be a bad place to live for a year.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Great to see you, Jeremiah. Pleasure.
Always
Thank you
to see
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me remind audiences that The Last Magnificent will air on CNN on Sunday, November 12th at 9 p.m. Sunday, November 12th at 9 p.m. Is that your time slot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there, it explains everything.
He's stepping aside.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.